In the fall of 1994, a family of 4 moved into a 512-acre ranch southeast of Ballard, Utah. Terry Sherman, his wife, and 2 children bought the picturesque estate and called it their new home. The Shermans wanted to escape from the small-town life in New Mexico, where people seemed to be very involved in each other's personal lives. Trading that for a quiet town and a faraway ranch, they finally found an ideal place in Utah, a seemingly untouched parcel of land with breathtaking views and an environment perfect for raising cattle. The former owners were an elderly couple who were more than glad to hand the property over to them, as they couldn't take care of it much anymore. For the Shermans, it was the best way to start a new idyllic life. But then, they would suddenly find themselves in a horrifying situation that could only be best described as a plot from a Hollywood horror movie. Only months after they moved in, the Shermans experienced a series of seemingly paranormal events: flashing lights moving across the sky, mysterious disembodied voices, and crop circles appearing around the sizable property. Worse, their livestock was becoming a victim to weird, bloodless mutilations that couldn't be explained. However, when they thought it couldn't get any worse, that was when it happened. One very late afternoon, while Sherman and his father, who was in the house at the time, saw a strange creature several yards away. At first glance, it looked like a regular wolf, only with its eyes a piercing color of blue. When it got closer, however, they realized it was closer than normal. The wolf lunged for one of the cattle, who was gazing curiously outside the corral. Before they knew it, the wolf was trying to pull the bleeding cattle out of the fence and possibly devour it. Alarmed and terrified, the father and son duo fought back using guns, but even after shooting it several times, the wolf was unharmed. Although it eventually released the poor cattle from its death grip and trotted off to the line of woods beyond the property, the Shermans weren't able to catch it, nor know what it was. It just vanished into thin air. Despite how it looked, they knew it wasn't a wolf or any other creature known to mankind. What that creature was would remain a mystery to this day, and was still one of the biggest mysteries of the seemingly haunted ranch that would be known as the Skinwalker Ranch. It would become the trigger to the creation of a secret program funded by the U.S. government to study an obscure and fringe field of science, UFOs, or more accurately, the research on unidentified aerial phenomena. National Institute for Discovery Science. The story we related above came from the best-selling book Hunt for the Skinwalker. Science confronts the unexplained at a remote ranch in Utah by Colm Kelleher, Ph.D., and George Knapp. It was the book that brought Skinwalker Ranch to public attention as one of the most important locales for UFOs in the United States. Both Knapp and Kelleher came from respectable backgrounds. The former was an investigative journalist, while the latter was a biochemist. Kelleher, in particular, would never have expected that he would be involved in the study of UFOs, which is until now treated with mockery and disdain in mainstream scientific communities. Kelleher would never have expected that he would later on bear witness to anomalous, seemingly paranormal events in the Skinwalker Ranch, let alone write a book about it and become one of the main leaders of a UFO program, backed by none other than the Pentagon itself. But let's back up for a moment and return to the story at hand. It only took the Shermans 18 months to call it quits and sell the property in Utah. Incidentally, the buyer would be Robert Bigelow, a hotshot American businessman known for his real estate empire. Bigelow's main interest, however, is in space travel, so founded National Institute for Discovery Science, or NIDSci, in 1995. There were 2 main purposes of the NIDSci: to study UFOs and find proof of life after death. NIDSci was based in Las Vegas, Nevada, a good 8 to 10 hour drive from the ranch. The ranch itself was located in Uinta Basin, a large expanse of land where creeks and rivers crisscross each other, flowing south from the east-west chain of mountains bearing the same name. Uinta is the homeland of the Ute tribe. But while it is the Utes' homeland, The namesake of the ranch came from the Navajo culture. The term Skinwalker originated from Navajo legends of shape-shifting evil witches who can turn into a person or animal at will. The Navajo and Utes had a long dispute over territory. It's been said that the Navajos cursed the land, unleashing a horde of skinwalkers on the area. However, anomalous events like floating lights and unknown creatures weren't unique to Skinwalker Ranch. The Southwest is a hotbed for UFO sightings. One of the first and most famous reputed incidents involving UFOs happened in Roswell, New Mexico. The enigmatic U.S. Air Base, Area 51, is located in Nevada. Then just 4.7 miles away from the ranch, the Bottle Hollow Reservoir is also home to many local legends and stories of unidentified aerial phenomena. These are just some of the intriguing stories which may have influenced the founding of NIDSci. When Bigelow purchased the ranch in 1996, it became one of the most important areas studied by the institution. NIDSci was comprised of highly accomplished and experienced individuals in their respective fields, from engineers, physicists, and futurists to psychiatrists and physicians. But while NIDSci was funded directly by Bigelow and had a team of reputable individuals working under its name, it was still a private institution. After almost a decade, its research yielded little results and was formally disbanded in 2004. Pentagon and UAPs. AAWSAP was formed due to the efforts made by former Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid. Senator Reid was once invited to a NIDS event in 1996 by Knapp, wherein he also met Bigelow and Kelleher. In the foreword of the 2021 book by the same authors, along with Dr. Jim Lakatsky this time, Skinwalkers at the Pentagon, an insider's account of the secret government UFO program. Senator Reid mentions how he was interested in UAPs and became impressed with the discussion in that same event. So, when he met with Bigelow and Lakatsky in 2007, they discussed Skinwalker Ranch and the importance of UAP research. Later on, it was Harry Reid who championed the creation of a secret UAP program, AAWSAP, with a budget of $22 million. The contract was then awarded to Bigelow Aerospace Advanced Space Studies, and the project began in 2007. While AAWSAP was probably the first of its kind in recent years, there had been similar projects launched within the government, such as the Project Blue Book, which began in 1952 and ended in 1969. But studies like these were rarely publicized, and AAWSAP wasn't any different. When the bombshell article from the New York Times hit the headlines on December 16, 2017, the secret Pentagon program became public knowledge. In the article, AAWSAP was referred to as AATIP. In the same book, AATIP was mentioned as a different unfunded program within the Pentagon, focusing on the UAPs encountered by military personnel. However, AAWSAP and AATIP soon became almost synonymous, and AATIP was the name generally used by the public when referring to the confidential Pentagon UFO program. Within the next few years, AAWSAP focused its efforts on understanding unidentified aerial phenomena. Why so? UFOs and UAPs might sound similar, but UAPs covers more ground as it refers to unexplained sights rather than just unknown hovering objects. It can be said that UAPs are bordering on paranormal. Indeed, the events at Skinwalker Ranch and nearby areas can't be outrightly called UFOs, but rather inexplicable sights that warrant explanation. Among the incidents studied by AAWSAP and AATIP was the many accounts of the Navy encountering UAPs. The most famous, perhaps, is the USS Nimitz case in 2004. In which fighter jet pilots saw an unmistakably tic-tac-shaped object that seemed to mirror their movements in the air. There was even video footage of the said incident, now released to the public and can be viewed on the New York Times website, along with the article that exposed AAWSAP in 2017. The big question is, what did the AAWSAP discover during its 5-year run? Quite a few. One of the most interesting yet equally frustrating things that AAWSAP discovered was that many of these UAPs were indeed what they are, unexplainable. However, the leaders of the program generally agree that the technology employed by the UAPs was far too advanced to be made by humans of today. There were also materials and metal alloys recovered in UAP sites that didn't seem made by human hands. Speaking of technology, some suggest that by studying these UAP, reverse engineering could be done on them that might help advance our own technology by leaps and bounds. Then, there are the more supernatural incidents. Weirdly enough, some people who participated in the project were also subjected to unexplainable events. A few of them experienced firsthand the UAPs, but were unable to record evidence of the incidents for various reasons. There are only a few possible explanations, such as being extraterrestrial in origin. They were made by non-humans, close to supernatural entities. Or it could be they were from higher dimensions. There were also suggestions of simulation and future humans. Then again, even the project leaders themselves were adamant that they didn't know for sure, and saying otherwise would be a disservice to the original goal of the program. That is, to know the truth behind these unusual phenomena. Do we buy that? I don't think so. Regardless, these incidents helped open up the reality of UAPs and how important it is to study them for the sake of not just the security of one country, but the world itself. The countless number of reports regarding UAPs was already a matter of concern, and the efforts of AAWSAP ushered public interest and government funding towards studying what was once referred to as a topic meant for crazy conspiracy theories. For instance, NASA's very own Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena Independent Study was launched in 2022 in hopes of examining UAPs. In their final report, NASA claims they found no solid proof of UAPs being extraterrestrial in origin, with most being explained by natural phenomena. However, even NASA had to admit that a number of these incidents defy explanation. While it's far from ideal, the increasing interest and effort from concerned agencies, as well as the public, would help us get closer to understanding these phenomena that have been bugging the public. As for the AAWSAP, it was said to have closed its doors. However, higher-ups within the project claimed that the project was still ongoing despite the lack of funding. This was confirmed by the former director of the Pentagon program, Luis Elizondo, when he stated that a new task force had been created as a successor. Its most recent incarnation might be the All-domain Anomaly Resolutions Office. The AARO is currently investigating hundreds of cases relating to UAPs, with 171 of them lacking enough explanation. It would be interesting for us to know if you know anything more about this. We bet some of you certainly do. And which of all this does and doesn't tie in for you?